In the frontal lobe part of the brain, this is where our self-control is. That's why with exercise it gets nice and strong. It's in the frontal lobe part of the brain where foresight is. And of course that's why we make a decision not to do it. Even a child, if they tread off a mat and there's a stinging nettle bed there, they don't tread off it again. You see, that's foresight. I would like to tread off the mat, but I remember what happened last time. See, there's a little bit of memory and there's a little bit of foresight. Don't want that pain again. It's in the frontal lobe part of the brain where our organisation skills are. We've got a book in our library, it's called Have a New Kid by Friday. It's a fantastic book. You can get it in the Coorong bookshop by Keith Lehman, and it's just black and white. It's just cause and effect. And at the end of every chapter, there's a testimony of about 5 parents saying, I had a new kid by Friday. And of course, what's happening? The parents are now just giving consequences to actions. It's as simple as that. We know there's a lot of trouble with raising children today, and it's why Keith Lehman's book, Have a New Kid by Friday, is so popular. It's why Super Nanny is so popular. It's why Dr. Phil is so popular. And really, it's all saying the same thing, that there must be a consequence for every action, whether it be good or whether it be not so good. It is training that will, gently guiding and directing that will. You can see that the frontal lobe part of the brain is a very important part of the brain. One writer called it the crown of the brain. It's actually the part of the brain that makes us who we are, because it's where we make our decisions. And really, our decisions determine our destiny. So let's have a look today at what can affect the frontal lobe. We don't have to worry so much about damage because we've got a very hard skull here. And even when we do fall or hit that skull, there are 7 layers of fascia, which is like thin balloon type material around the brain. So when we do fall, and by the way there's fluid between each, there's a cushioning effect. The problem arises when there's a continual beating of the brain, like in boxing and often in rugby league. And there's a condition called rugby migraine. You may have heard of it. But everyone knows it's brain damage. It's just a continual banging on the brain in different areas. Muhammad Ali, you know, his interviews in the latter part of his career, there wasn't much sense, was there? And he got Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's really is neurodegeneration. His was obviously physical. Some other cases of neurodegeneration can happen because of not just physical banging, but other damage to the brain can be caused by chemicals, can be caused by heavy metals, and we will be touching on that as we go through this lecture. So we don't really have to worry too much about physical damage, but what we do have to be concerned about is everything that goes into our through our orifices and into our brain is having an effect. In this first lecture today, I want to have a look at what's going in the mouth. In our next lecture, we're going to have more of a look at probably the mental and the spiritual aspects. So let's see what goes into the body that can damage the frontal lobe. Sugar. How could sugar damage the frontal lobe? Especially when most people realise that the brain consumes a lot of glucose. In fact, it consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell. It's allowed to, it's headquarters. It's making a lot of decisions, isn't it? But the problem arises in the fact that there's only a 2-minute supply of glucose. That's all the brain has. And when sugar goes in, we looked at this earlier in the week, when sugar goes in, blood glucose levels rise dramatically. Does that mean intellect, reason and judgment are working well? No, they're bypassed. It's like trying to control a fast car. So very quickly the brain says to the pancreas, quick, help, release insulin. We need to get these blood sugar levels down. But in a case of high glucose, that demands high insulin. And because a lot of insulin was released, too much is going into storage, into the cell, or the storage of glycogen and fat. So now we're going too low. How's intellect, reason and judgment down there? No one's home. This is when the kids are bouncing off the wall. This is when the kids are scrapping and fighting and not doing anything that you say. You want easy parenting? Eliminate the sugar. For mother and child, actually. You want easy parenting? Eliminate the sugar and use the will. I think it'd make a good book, wouldn't it? Use the will and eliminate the sugar. Easy parenting. What's happening is pancreases are wearing out, but not only pancreases are wearing out, brains are wearing out. Dr. John Tintera, he's a British endocrinologist, he made the quite alarming statement that no one should go on psychiatric medication till they've had a glucose tolerance test first. Whoa. It may just be that their pancreas and their adrenal glands are worn out and they're not handling their blood sugar levels properly. That's a little bit scary, isn't it? That's why William Duffy's book is called Sugar Blues, because sugar causes the blues. That's where it is. It's a brief transitory high, but it's a long, slow low. That's the blues. You could also call the blues depression. There is one hormone, insulin, that gets the blood glucose levels down. Number one. The pancreas releases glycogen. That's designed to get the blood glucose levels up again. The adrenal glands release adrenaline. That's another hormone that can get the blood glucose levels up again. The adrenal glands also release noradrenaline, another adrenaline that can get the blood glucose levels up again. Number 4, the pituitary gland releases the human growth hormone. It can also get the blood sugar levels up again by releasing fat. The thyroid gland releases thyroxine. Thyroxine is a hormone that will release fat stores to get glucose up. You see, the thyroid gland controls metabolism. When metabolic rate runs too low, thyroxine's released to release fat stores to give glucose. One hormone to get the blood glucose levels down again. And God knew that we don't want to be down there. And so there are 5 hormones. Actually, there's a 6th one, and that's cortisol. Cortisol is also from the adrenal glands. 6 hormones to get it up again. But you know what's happening today? Pancreases are worn out, so the glycogen's not available. The adrenal glands are exhausted because of the human being is dependent on the crutch, which is caffeine, sugar, to get those artificials high. So the adrenal glands are exhausted, so adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol are exhausted. The person hasn't exercised for a long time and the human growth hormone's forgotten what it's supposed to do. The person's got a mouthful of mercury fillings, which is gobbling up all the selenium, so the thyroid gland cannot convert iodine to thyroxine, which it needs selenium to do. And the other thing that can affect the thyroid gland is the lady might have been on the pill for 10 years, and high estrogen opposes thyroid function. So see, the blood glucose levels go down. The pancreas says, nah, we're out of glycogen. Adrenal gland says, we're exhausted, bank account's empty. There's no adrenaline. That's supposed to be adrenaline. There's no noradrenaline left. There's no cortisol left. Quick, we'll go to the pituitary gland. Sorry, there's no human growth hormone. It's actually forgotten what to do. Quick, thyroid gland, you're our last resort. The mercury and the high estrogen have stopped that. So where does the person stay? Down there. God did his best. He gave us all these hormones to get it up. Many people, in ignorance granted, are down there. And the very things they take to try and give them a lift are actually exhausting those hormones even more. It's a tragic state, isn't it?